to your point, it's always on, off, on, off, whatever. It's 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, or 5 days, doesn't matter. And I don't know if it's really not to build the tolerance, because actually I'm taking less and less of a substance. So you're not really, I would say, increasing the tolerance, hence having to increase the dosage. I think it is more, is it necessary?
Welcome to Unleash Thyself, a podcast where we journey into the depths of personal transformation, spirituality, and growth. I am your host, Konstantin Morun, and today we're talking with Peggy Van De Plassche, a pro in business and finance who's taken a very surprising turn into the world of microdosing. Peggy's story is pretty cool because it shows how something unexpected, like microdosing psilocybin, which people often link with hippies, can actually play a big role in the workplace. Back in 1999, Peggy faced her own health scare and started to look at life very differently. This led her to explore microdosing, a practice she says has helped her and other top leaders perform better in their careers. Peggy's come from being a big name in finance to teaching people about the benefits of microdosing through her book and talks all over the world. She believes microdosing can help calm us down, make us smarter with our feelings, and give us more energy to succeed. Today, Peggy will share with us how she got into this beautiful realm, why she thinks it's a game changer for people in any field, and how it can help us connect better with ourselves and what we do. Let's dive in and learn from Peggy about microdosing and finding more success, passion, and happiness in our lives. But of course, before we start, I have a small favor to ask. Please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps us continue to bring these transformative stories to light. But now, let's begin. Hello, beautiful souls. I have with me none other than Peggy Van De Plassche. Peggy, it's such a pleasure to have you with us, and I'm thrilled to have a beautiful conversation about the power of plant medicine, really, in a form that many people may not be aware of. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be with you. I'm listening to your podcast. I love your podcast, so I'm really delighted to be a guest today.
You're too kind. Thank you so much. So, let's jump right into it. We're about to talk about mushrooms, right? The special type of mushrooms, but also about microdosing these type of mushrooms. So let's jump right into it. What is microdosing for those people that may have heard and not are not really sure what it is and how it differs from like taking a regular dose?
Yeah. So microdosing, and you can microdose anything in life, is about taking extremely small dosage of a substance. So here we're talking about psilocybin or magic mushroom. So you're taking around 100 milligram every 2 or 3 days. It's like taking a supplement, taking a cap. Some people take it as chocolate or dry mushrooms, but it's really about taking extremely small dose. And for me, the principle of microdosing is really also about the frequency, the intention. So there is a lot of context above and beyond just the quantity and the size of the dose.
I love that you said, especially the last part, context and intention seem to come up quite a bit in life. And intentions specifically, when I was in the jungles of Ecuador and doing my ayahuasca trip, intentions were everything. And then I realized, wait a second, intentions when you go to therapy, traditional therapy, intentions when you go do any other plant medicine or anything in life, set the stage so beautifully. But what do you mean by context?
Yeah. It's like everything in life. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
And it's very connected to, again, the intention. And for me, every time, I microdose every other day, but some people have a different frequency. Every time microdose, I come back to, okay, why is it that I'm microdosing? So, and I can change sometimes, what is the intention, but it's really connecting to that. And I think that's very important. It's the same thing. Why are we having this conversation today? Why are you listening to this podcast?
Mm.
And very often, that's something I'm really focusing on in my work, is getting us off this autopilot. getting us off the limiting belief, getting us off the conditioning. Microdosing, we don't care. It could be meditation, it could be anything for you. I'm using microdosing with different alternative therapies to get to a goal. That's the why. That's the only thing that is really important for you, your why.
I love that. I love that you went there, Peggy. And yes, I agree with you 100%. The why, so the context and the intentions behind it, as opposed to expectations behind why you're taking it. So let's dive into the why for you and what you see as the why for many others, or the context for yourself. Can you tell us a bit more as to why someone should even consider this?
Yes, and I will probably start with what are the benefits we're seeing
Yeah.
usually with microdosing psilocybin, because we all go we will all have benefits from all these different buckets, but we might come from a different perspective. So I see really three buckets when it comes to the benefits to microdose psilocybin. The first one is for your performance. You work in tech. I used to work in finance services. I was an investor in technology, so performance was usually why most people were microdosing psilocybin. This question of having increased productivity, increased creativity, increased focus, all of that are some of the benefits you're getting that really give you more productivity at work or in whatever you are focusing on. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, that's a very, very important set of benefits. And that's why you see many people in Silicon Valley, microdosing, it's for that reason. The second set of benefits, which was really the benefits I was looking for, is for your mental health. And
Yes.
it's really about decreasing stress, decreasing anxiety, decreasing depression, symptoms of depression, symptoms of PTSD. So it really, I would say, microdosing psilocybin really gives you that, it removes the edge of your nervous system. And unfortunately, all our nervous systems are really strained, and most of us have a nervous system that has been strained since they were a kid. So our baseline is extremely high. So having a better mental health obviously is a reason for many, many people to microdose psilocybin. And the third benefits, which was usually a bit less talked about because maybe it's a bit more spiritual, it's really your connection with yourself and
Yeah.
your connection with others. And, increased sense of compassion, of empathy. I really, really like to talk about that increase in consciousness and connection, because when I speak with corporates, I explain, well, that increase the ability for people to be better leaders, to collaborate better, and really it's a support to teamwork. So all of these three bucket of benefits, you can really leverage them at work, at home, at sport, whatever you're doing, and it's with you all the time. You don't have to pick when you're benefiting from them. It's for 24/7.
Ah, that's beautiful. Thank you for being so descriptive. And all those benefits sound amazing. Even if you just look at one bucket specifically and say, hey, do I want more of that? Most people would say yes, especially the second bucket around mental health that you mentioned. Now, you did mention that you take it every other day. Some people take it every 3 days. I've seen in my limited research and knowledge that some people take 4 days on, 3 days off. And my understanding is that the reason you need to alternate somewhat, regardless of how you do it, is because you don't want to build a tolerance for the substance.
Yeah, and some people also do a Monday to Friday, like the
Mm.
corporate warrior. They take. So to your point, it's always on off, on off. Whatever, it's 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, or 5 days, doesn't matter. And I don't know if it's really not to build the tolerance, because actually I'm taking less and less of a substance. So you're not really, I would say, increasing the tolerance, hence having to increase the dosage. I think it is more, is it necessary? It's because it is looked at not a medication, but in 30 years, it's going to be something your children or I will take the same way I'm taking maybe my vitamin C. there will be not such oh la la, what is it, microdosing psilocybin. So it's, I don't look at it as something very different than any other type of supplements. It's really again the context that makes it woohoo, haha.
I love that. I love that. So what we talked about, the alternation, how it might be because it builds tolerance, it might not be, it might be other reasons. So let's say, like, you take it every other day.
Mhm.
Now you take it right now. Let's say today. Do you still feel the benefits tomorrow before you take it again the next day after?
And again, it's something that is sub perception, so I don't feel it. So let's say that again, I'm taking vitamin C or magnesium. Vitamin C, maybe you feel it. Let's say I take magnesium every day. I don't know. Is it something that has been released over my body? Is it building up? I don't know, because it's sub perception, and it is the same thing. These doses are so small that I don't realize, like you don't even feel. I don't drink coffee, but I guess someone who's drinking his first coffee in the morning might feel a little jolt, of, I don't know, excitement or whatever it is. You don't even feel that. So it is impossible. Someone was going to tell you, well, when I take a microdose, this or that happen. Well, maybe they're taking too much and it's not a microdose, or maybe for whatever reason they have an extremely high threshold for sensitivity. But if you're taking a very small dosage, you will not feel it. Changes will happen in the background. The rewiring happens, the calmness happens, but it's not cause and effect, and I can touch it. Yeah.
I love that. Beautiful, beautiful. So speaking of that, the effects that happen in the background, for an average person, from what you've seen, how long does it take before you see the effects in bucket one, which is productivity, bucket two, mental health, or the spirituality side of it? Like it's likely not going to be overnight, like nothing is. But I'm curious what you've seen in terms of how long it takes.
It's very fast. 2-3 weeks, you already see people getting benefits in terms of not only again being more calm, being more uplifted in terms of mental health, but also being productive. Very, very fast. So, and one thing I also want to mention is that microdosing is great. I really love it. It is not a magic pill either.
Yeah.
So I use microdosing very mindfully, very strategically. So we discussed about the why. I use it for different purposes. I have vision I want to accomplish or that I want to reach. That will be my why. But then I combine the microdosing with journaling, with guided meditation, with tapping
Mm.
meditation. Some people might do coaching. Some people might do their usual therapy, whatever it is. But if you really, really want to have long term changes, but also changes that you control, I like to know what I'm rewiring my brain with. So when I do microdosing, but also guided meditation, tapping with a certain goal in mind.
Hey, it's Konstantin here, and I want to take a brief moment to truly thank you for being a part of this incredible journey of transformation. You are the reason we are creating this content. I see you and I appreciate you. Your support truly means the world to me. I want to ask you for a small favor. I'd love for you to join our mission by hitting like, subscribe, or leaving a thoughtful comment or review. Your engagement helps others discover these insights, and together we can continue to unlock the power of authenticity and personal transformation. Thank you for being a part of this movement. Now, back to the episode.
I know that I'm doubling or tripling the power of all these medicines by combining them. And I think that's what's very important for people to know is that we all want the magic pill. That's great. And you can just do a short guided meditation, a short tapping session every day. It can take you 5-10 minutes, some journaling, whatever. It's really, really going to improve the results you're going to see with microdosing.
Yeah, I love that. And you're absolutely right, because I used to be someone like that too. It's like, oh, I want this magic pill, try for a week or two, doesn't work, move on to the next thing, right? And it's important for us to realize that there is no real magic pill. I mean, for some, it might. turn out to be the magic pill, but it's very unlikely that most of us will get that. And it takes a bit of time, like you said, even though it's only 2 3 weeks. We want to give it time and combine it with everything that you've mentioned, right? And let's jump. You mentioned the legality of it, right? We're
Yeah.
both in Canada, but
Mhm.
we're part of North America, right? Some countries are, or let's call it provinces or states in the United States or across the world. Some are better off to allow psilocybin in its potent form, or like the microdosing, and some are not. Uh, what have you seen in that area? I know there's a lot of progress happening, but right now, if I'm someone in Canada or USA, can I even buy the microdoses legally?
So that's, that's the beauty of what is legal, what is ethical. So what's happening right now in Canada, to be specific to Canada, is that technically, no, you're not supposed to buy or to sell products with psilocybin. So obviously there is always this gray zone where you can buy yourself the spore, meaning the like
The
when
baby
the
mushroom?
well, when the mushroom, yeah, exactly, when the mushroom is not sprouted yet, so you buy like a seed, but it's called a spore for the mushroom.
Yeah.
So that is legal, but once you grow it, that is not legal anymore. That's the stupidity of the law. So that's a different thing. But so technically, no, you're not supposed to. If you follow the letter of the law, you're not supposed to buy or sell psilocybin. In reality, I don't know how it is in Halifax in particular, in Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, BC, you have shops selling psilocybin. Some actually sell microdosing products, but a lot of them sell actually, you can buy 3 5 grams of,
Wow.
yeah, which you're entering a different realms of what I'm talking about. You can buy online. Actually, I just started my own line of microdosing products. And why did I do that? Because I've been speaking a lot about the benefits of microdosing, and people were like, "Well, where can I buy it?" And it's important to have quality products. And I didn't really have a place where I could point fingers to a place where I would be 100% sure that it was high quality product. So I team up with a clinic in the west coast of Canada, and that's the products they were using with their own patients. And we developed it together for my own brand. So again, the legality of it, you can buy it very easily. We ship in Canada, we ship in the US. Is it legal? No, it is not.
Yeah. And that's what we're seeing changes, at least, if I'm not mistaken, in Canada, specifically Vancouver as a city, legalized a lot of drugs, let's call them, or anything that's not legal. And then also states in the USA. I know Oregon is one. There might be a couple more that don't come to mind right
Colorado.
now.
Yeah. So you have pockets, and it's the difference between decriminalization, which means the police is not gonna go after you, but it's still not legal,
Ah,
and legalization, where you can actually take whatever you want. So, and that's the complexities that the legal framework has been changing at the speed of light, which is great because it's moving in the right direction, but it makes things extremely complicated because in some places it's legalized, in some places it's decriminalized, in some places nothing has happened, but people still do it. So it's all over the place. As always, unfortunately, the legal framework is changing way slower than societal needs.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And then we talk about countries that have decriminalized or legalized a lot of this, like the Netherlands, I believe, is one of them, and a few others.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, right? Because for people listening, and you're looking at something like this and you're like, wow, there's so many benefits. And we know that there are many clinics, like you said, you partner with one, many clinics that are using psilocybin and the products, the byproducts of it, to treat people of severe things like even PTSD and whatnot. And
Yeah.
there are shows on Netflix that go over what people have uncovered with this type of medicine, be it a microdose or a macrodose.
Mhm.
And it's beautiful to see that at least the science is coming out with more and more, which puts pressure then on the system. And then people are like, well, I want this, which also I would imagine puts some pressure on the system. And that's why we're seeing it come up more and more, at least in North America,
Yeah.
as something that you can do and you can have free will over, so to speak.
Yeah, and like you pointed out the benefits to it, and again, I mentioned a bit what is legal, what is ethical. We also want to be very mindful that laws are not always ethical. You don't have to think to countries that are not North America to think about laws we've had not that long ago that were extremely unethical. So you have to also use your own. That's why I always speak about deconditioning and autopilot, because I made my decision to do something that is not legal, but that is ethical. I'm not going to wait 5, 10, 15 years for the government to tell me that I can be healthy, that I can be more productive, I can have a better spiritual life. And that's the thing that I really want people who are listening today, and they make the choices they want. They don't have to make the same choice than I, but you need to understand that it is not because it's legal, but it is ethical. But you also have to understand the conflict of interest inherent to any decisions when it comes to healthcare. The healthcare industry obviously is a very, very strong and wealthy lobby. They are supporting politicians. It's obviously not in their interest, the healthcare companies, to have products that are cheap, that you cannot patent because it's a plant coming on the market and basically displacing their products. So you need to understand all of that. I mean, it is very, very important to understand why things are the way they are. And after you agree, you don't agree, that's your choice. But you need to reflect on that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. Absolutely. At the end of the day, you make your own decisions based on what you believe is true or not, or what sits well with you. I like that approach for sure. I do the same, not just with plant medicine in general, but anything in life. Like if you listen to this podcast, take what you agree with, toss out the rest. Maybe it will change in a few years, right? Because you planted some seeds and they may germinate and they will change, right? And that's the beauty of this. You have at the end of the day free will and you have a choice to make. It's like, okay, what Peggy says kind of makes sense. I'll see later. Or it's like, wow, this resonates. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't, right? And that's fine. Nobody's forcing anyone to do anything. So I really appreciate you going deeper into that area. Now, we also talked, or rather, you talk about benefits around the physical realm. So I'm curious, we talked about the three big buckets, but physically speaking, what are some of the benefits if we can go even deeper into that?
Yeah. So I'm an avid tennis player. So it has been very interesting for me to see really the physicality of the impact of microdosing. So when you speak of having more focus, for example, well, when I play tennis, it is very helpful because obviously I have a bit of a tunnel vision. And actually, what's interesting is that psychedelics have been used by extreme sports for the longest time, because it really give you not only that tunnel vision, but it also give you faster reaction. So
Mm.
I'm not a competitive player by any stretch of imagination, but for people who are competing in, I would say, most sports, these are going to be great advantages. So it's really, like the physical benefits, again, this attention, this creativity. So when I'm mentioning as well the question everything, and when you microdose psilocybin, the beauty is that you're going to start thinking about things differently. Is that you're going to start thinking about, oh, yes, I'm told that I should drink, I don't know, milk, for example. Is it really true that I need to drink milk to have calcium, or is it because the food and beverage industries have been paying marketing companies to make me believe that?
Yeah.
you know so that I think is interesting. Or you can look at the education system and suddenly you're like, wow, does it really make sense that children are taught this and not that? Or, and that's really something I find very interesting with the creativity. Of course, you have all the creativity with work. I wrote a book. It's way easier for me to see many, many doors when before I only had one door. But what's the most interesting is really going at a societal perspective and now looking at the things that we took for granted and looking at it and it's like, really, does it really make sense that we live in a society that is maybe not extremely fair, or that is abusing animals because we decided that everyone needed to eat red meat? And you take whatever you want from that, but at least you're asking yourself questions constantly, and you're also coming up with different ways of doing things, and you experiment way more. I was very unidimensional. I was always going to eat at the same restaurant. I was always eating the same food, dressing the same way, da 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 da. And now suddenly you're just like, oh, wow, maybe I'm just going to do that. And I'm not saying things that are crazy, but it's interesting to discover different aspects of yourself and your life.
Oh, absolutely agreed with 100%, because like you, I was now realizing, or looking back, one dimensional or a couple of dimensions, similar foods, similar escapes from reality, right into gaming, Netflix, the usual ones that people jump into. And it wasn't until I truly opened my mind and said, you know what, let me actually seek out different perspectives. I
Yes.
don't have to agree with them. That's the key here. You don't have to agree with them, but seek them out. And when I did that, everything changed in my life. Like I talked about, and you may be familiar with this, I talked about a lot about my plant medicine journey in Ecuador when I went on a mental health retreat and opted to try this out. Even though I've never been drunk in my life, even though I haven't done drugs in my life up to the point, and after really, like I went blind, but I said I want a different perspective. I saw something here. My thousands of hours of research pointed me in like, yeah, this is something that's been done for thousands of years with extreme benefit. Go try it out, and if it didn't work, be like, okay, you know what? At least I can check this off and say, hey, you know what? It was a week of my, or 12 days of my life. I can check it off and be like, whatever. But it was far, it was far from that, right? Transformational, beyond transformational, and that what can happen if you have an open mind. It doesn't mean it's going to happen every time, but at least you can say, okay, well, I learned that I'm not going to do that. That's for sure not for me.
Yeah.
Or it could be the opposite or anything in between.
Exactly, and I like that you brought it in that direction, because I see a lot of resistance. So you would say, after I spoke about all these benefits, why are not everyone jumping on microdosing psilocybin? So usually the resistance I see is the legality, that's for sure. Second, finding quality product. But the third one is really that fear of change, and this idea that, oh my God, if I start that type of process, I'm going to become a different person, and I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to become a yoga teacher in Bali and leave my spouse, my children, whatever. Okay, that's not what's happening. That's not what we're talking about here. We're really if you want to do that, that's a different problem, but it has nothing to do with the medicine. Here, what we're talking about, it's really looking at what are more options around you that are already there, but that you might not have
Yes.
even noticed before. And I think
Yes.
that's the most important thing, is that it's not about you changing your life. If you want to change your life, that's great. It's also about changing your perspective on your life, seeing
Yeah.
more options, being more excited. Like I've been like you in the past. I used to work in the corporate world, and that song from the Rolling Stones, I can get no satisfaction, and it was that, and you're just like, okay, well, promotion, I don't care. The house, I don't care. It's like there's nothing that can give you any type of satisfaction. It's never enough, and you don't even know what actually would make you. I'm not even going to say fulfilled. I'm going to say less unhappy, and that's where I was. That's why I really started, because like you, I've never taken recreational drug before. So it was an important decision for me, especially that I knew no one around me who's done it. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to try. And that's really bad, is that my life, had I done microdosing, as I said, mindfully, strategically 20 years ago, man, different career, different life. That's why I keep screaming from the rooftops for people to try it, because you can really have a different path.
Yes. Oh, I appreciate that you've gone there, because it's almost like you're speaking about me there, even though you're speaking about yourself. That was the path I was on a few years ago before I went on this plant medicine.
Mhm.
And for some people it's very, very transformational right away, and they may end up being the yoga teacher somewhere, and they live their current life. But then I say, people win the lottery all the time. Doesn't mean that that's a big percentage or it's going to be you. But for most of us, what's going to happen, like you said, is going to give you at least an idea, from what I've seen, of what you may be missing in your life. Not in anyone else's, like in your life. Because you talked about not being necessarily fulfilled or having enough happiness or all that. Like I was exactly the same spot. I was like burnt out, anxious, depressed to no end, despite having the American dream, or that's why the Canadian dream, since we're in Canada, right? And it's like, it doesn't make sense, right? I have all the shiny toys, I have a good family life. What's missing?
Mhm.
And what was missing is, for me at least, and you talked about this, is that why are we doing things in life, which is, I call it my purpose, following my heart, like the sign above me for those watching. And that's really what it comes down to. For me, at least ayahuasca journey specifically, shed the light on the fact that, gave me perspective as to why I was feeling the way I did. And it was still up to me to make a decision and be like, do I really want to pursue that, or am I going to sit in my misery and be okay? And you talked about the power of, not the power, but the fear of change,
Yeah.
which is innate in every human. And in the podcast, some people will remember that we talk a lot about psychology and physiology and evolution, right? I love to study that because I love psychology as well. And the fear of change, which you alluded to, is actually innate in every human because of our evolution. Because in the past, let's take 100 years and before, any big change, any change in your life came with many risks,
Yeah.
which meant that there was a risk to your life.
Exactly.
If there was a risk to your life, why would your brain, your ego want you to change? That's why it's so easy for us to be stuck in one area and not change, because fighting is not the right word, but let's use fighting your physiology, you're fighting your human system.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the change isn't good for you. Some is, some isn't. However, you're fighting against an older system that cannot adapt as fast as humanity adapts,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So that's really how I understand it.
And that's absolutely true. And you add to that the conditioning that has been built from that physiology, you know, and the limiting belief that were built on top of that. So what we are trying to do is basically going back to our authentic self. So
Yes.
what I mean by that is that we were all born on authentic self, and then the biology pushed us in the direction of, "Ooh, be afraid, ooh, there is a tiger following you," but also society, or parents, church, whatever, the systems you were around, not necessarily because they were conscious, or not necessarily because they were mean, but they condition you. So, for example, dad's going to be happier with you if you have a certain sexual orientation. Mom's going to be happier with you if you have great marks at school. And as a kid, you absorb it. Like, okay, well, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do that. And maybe that was not who you were authentically, but now you're abandoning yourself a little bit more every day because you're trying to survive as a kid, while having approval from your parents, your school, society is key to your survival. But then you're waking up and it's 30 years later, and then you're wondering why you have anxiety, depression, and all this great stuff. Well, it's because you're living someone else's life. And it's
100%.
it's difficult to be fulfilled and happy when you're living the life of someone else, and you've been fed a lot of fears. Usually it's rarely coming from a place of expansion, it's coming from a place of contraction. So now you have to delayer. And I think you and I, and probably the people who are listening, we are at this place where, like, okay, for the last several decades, I put all this layer, or I was put layer on me. Now, let's delayer. And that's also why I really like microdosing, because it lower the ego barriers. So when you're trying to basically rewrite your software, uh, it's way easier to do it, which is why the combination of the microdosing with tools that really help you remove conditioning, remove limiting belief is helpful. The microdosing by itself is not going to remove your conditioning and your limiting belief. And just doing tapping, journaling, guided meditation, wow, in 5 decades, you're still trying to remove your layers. Trust me, I've done that for like 15 years before. But when you combine both, poof, goes way faster. And you add, as you mentioned, big trip in between. You have the recipe to be back to your authentic self, or at least a version of your authentic self.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's so beautifully said. And that idea of living someone else's life, that hits close to home because that was me.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people I either work with in my corporate world, or I coach, or I mentor, or I see in my life, that's pretty much everyone, at least to some degree, right? Because it's like you said, there's indoctrination, there's the beliefs of others, there's the boxes others drew around you, the boxes you drew around yourself because of what you learned, and you end up living someone else's life. And I remember a research paper that I was reading for one of my podcast episodes around the biggest regret dying people have. And there was this scientific group that went out and did interviews with people, and the majority of them, the biggest regret was the fact that they didn't live the life they wanted.
Yeah.
They lived someone else's life for their spouse, for their kids, for the job they never liked, but it was safe because it was bringing in some money to have an okay life. And if that tells you anything, I mean, do you really want to get to your deathbed and be like, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have gone a different path? I mean, ideally not. And that reminds me of a quote that put me on this path 7 years ago now. I would say just about, that says like this, like I don't know who the quote is attributed to. No one knows, I don't think. It says that the definition of hell, or my definition of hell, is waking up on my last day on earth and meeting the person I could have been.
Oh yes, I read that
Right?
quote.
So
Yes, yes,
that's
yes,
very much what we're talking about. It's like if you meet that person
yeah,
and it's like fairly similar to how you lived your life, you'll be like happy. But what most of us can't say that.
yeah.
At least most people are seeing in life. I mean, now I'm on a path where hopefully by the time that happens, I can say that, you know what,
Mm,
I'm happy.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I think engaging and moving forward on the journey, because it's a journey and not a destination. Already the first step. You already have that satisfaction of having engaged in the process. But the funny thing with authentic self, some people maybe were born, I would say, in easier circumstances where their authentic self was kind of aligning with what people were expecting him and
Mhm.
her to be. But I don't think there are many people like that. Let's be honest. Or maybe if you're really, in a place where you were extremely conventional by nature, you were authentically conventional, maybe. But I really don't think it is the case for most of us, and that is very disheartening to realize that. Uh, and it's not about saying again, I'm dropping all my responsibilities. It's absolutely not that. That's not what I'm saying. Changing again your outlook on life, your perspective on life, even if you just change a degree by a degree a year, and let's say your midlife today, a degree a year, that's going to bring you in a very different place on your deathbed than if you're just following where you are. And I think that's really what you're talking about. It's this idea that we're not talking about earthquake tomorrow. 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree, you're going to get way closer to that best version. And again, What is best? Your best is not my best.
Exactly.
Best is, in my definition, most authentic me, which is going to be very different from most authentic you, and that's fine. Right now it seems to me that everyone thinks best is the same for everyone, and everyone is striving for the same three things, money, power, fame. uh, and maybe for some people that's their authentic self, and that's fine if it's the case. I doubt it is the case for everyone. So we question your values as well.
Such a great point you make there, because that's another big realization of mine over the last few years, is that we each have our own definitions for absolutely everything, like good and bad. There's a different definition for you than me. What I mean by definition is not like what it says in the dictionary, but what you deem to be good or bad.
Yeah.
Black and white, blue and red, those all come up. And because again, you have your own beliefs, you have your own lessons that you've learned, indoctrination, whatever. And that's very important for everyone to realize, that you have the power to decide, is this something for me or not for me?
Yeah.
And it's okay to make mistakes, because I remember in the past I made decisions, I said, you know what, this is not for me, and then I came back years later and I'm like, you know what, I missed out on that.
Yeah.
Now I can. And it's never too late, really. That's another thing that people say, it's never really too late, because when I thought it wasn't for me, maybe I was right, and likely I was right, because I wasn't in a
Mhm.
mental state, in a physical state, in a spiritual state to do whatever that was. But now with my extra knowledge, with my open mind, now maybe I'm in a space where I can do this.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of life, is we don't have to look back and keep regretting what we haven't done, realizing that everything that we've done actually led to where we are today. So we can like flip the script and be more grateful, and appreciate everything that we've gone through. And that kind of goes to what you're saying about practices like meditation and tapping and breath work and all that, because I would add in appreciation and gratitude. That's a
Mhm.
big practice for me in my life,
Yeah.
and has made me shift from the negativity bias that's so prevalent in today's world, in everyone, again, a physiological aspect
Exactly.
of ourselves as humans, to more appreciative, to a
Mhm.
more positive mindset, which allows me then to run into an obstacle and be able to overcome it a lot quicker and not let it impact me as much.
Yeah. And I was mentioning journaling, and I think is
Hmm.
exactly what you're saying with appreciation, with gratitude. It really helps you process things. And one very, very important point you made was nothing is written in stone. Things that maybe were not great for you, and maybe they were and you thought they were not, doesn't matter. 10 years ago, you can revisit now. You can revisit in 10 years, like it's, I do a lot of oracle card reading. And when I do that to friends, I just do it to friends. I don't get paid for that. I just do it to relatives, and it's not a business. And when I do that, people sometimes are afraid. I say it's just a pointer where you are right now. It is, what I can read on the situation today. It doesn't mean that it's true in a month, in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. So it's really the understanding that uncertainty is the only certainty, and that is probably the most difficult thing for us as human beings. And as long as we're fighting this set of circumstances of um, uncertainty, you're always going to be grasping at the straws, because you cannot control what's happening. So you're better off being very good at being adaptable than learning at trying to control your environment, because you're going to fail anyway.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And control is definitely another word close to home, because I had the illusion, to be honest, for a big part of my life, that I was in control of many, many, many things in my environment. And the reality is, and I look back now, I'm like, I was very naive. I thought I had control. And by thinking I had control and trying to control more and more, I actually missed a ton of opportunities,
Yeah.
because I had a very fixed, closed mindset and approach to life that essentially blocked me from seeing amazing opportunities, experiences, people, everything else, right? And I love that you touched on that, because it's such an important
Yeah.
part of our path to get into that true authentic self.
Yeah. Well, and for people who are listening or watching us today, it's something that's important as well because think about, okay, what's your ideal life? Uh, you're probably thinking there is one image and there is one path. And actually, there are many images and there are many paths. And the second you get more comfortable with that, as you pointed out, you're going to be able to see more opportunities because you're going to have flexibility. Because thinking that there is only one way to get to one destination, uh, very often that's when you wake up and you need to do something different because you're failing and you're failing and you're failing because you might not be on the right path and you think there is only one path.
Love that. Yeah, and again, something I can 100% relate with. And what comes up for me from that, to add on top of it, if I may, is the idea that we talked at the beginning, intentions, right? Intentions versus expectations. Because if you think that there's only one path and it comes from the logical mind, usually, that means you're going to have an expectation of how the path will look like and how the result will look like as well. Which again, it's like the blinders on a horse will prevent you from seeing many other possibilities and opportunities along the way.
Exactly.
And that's why coming back to an intention and saying, well, my intention is, let's say, fame, because you used that earlier, and some people want that as their, let's say fame is my intention. There isn't just one path to it, right? Or maybe money, because that's another one that's very common for people. If you want money, well, my my view would be the past was, well, I need to climb the corporate ladder. That's going to be
Yes. Mhm.
my path. I gotta go down that way, right? And now when you open up, you realize, wait a second, there's actually more. I mean, technically, right, I could leave the corporate world and do something else, and I could still be okay. Maybe not make as much money, but I'll still be okay. It doesn't mean that that path is not for you or not worth exploring. Now, some people will never go there, but that's really intention versus expectation. If we can get more on intention than expectations, we can get much farther ahead, I would imagine.
Exactly. What is the quality, the energy of what you're trying to achieve? And I think that makes a
Mhm.
huge difference, which is more, we tend to think, oh, if I get, you are talking about money, if I get whatever amount of money, I want that. So why? Oh, because people respect me. Why? Because I will finally think I'm worthy. Why? Or maybe I'm going to feel like I am safe now. So the money is not the goal. The goal is safety, recognition, worthiness. And then, well, if you realize these are the underlying motivation, well, work on this motivation, work on feeling safe, feeling worthy, and that's why I love tapping so much because tapping really help you, like feel aligned better with your end goals. And then you realize, yeah, you still want money, but that would be for fun, that would be for luxuries, that would be to travel, not to feel safe, not to feel worthy, not to be respected. Very different place.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. It's a beautiful. So let's tap into tapping for a second. I've had a chance to practice that at one point last year with a teacher of mine, and I haven't really looked at it much more beyond that because I haven't really done any due diligence or research. So, what have you found with tapping yourself?
Yeah, so it's, you know what, I was introduced to tapping maybe 5 years ago, and like you, I tried with a teacher. I was told about it. I did maybe one or two video, and yeah, I just wasn't for me, wasn't the time, whatever. And 3 years ago, for whatever reason, actually a girlfriend of mine reminded me of a practice. I'm like, okay, well, let's try again. And then I was probably in the right mindset, I don't know. And then suddenly I really see big changes. And the concept of tapping, and for people who don't know what tapping is you're using your finger points to tap on certain meridian points on your face and on your body. So your eyebrows, corner of your eyes, below your eyes. Anyway, you have a few points like that. Very, very easy, honestly. Like in 2 minutes, you know what to do. It's portable, it's cheap. I mean, it's a great tool. You don't need to pay $100 $150 every week to see someone to do it. but that's another story. And the goal of tapping is to interrupt the message from your brain to your body. And
Mm.
so there is a lot of science behind tapping. It's not just a random practice. Actually, there's been scientific studies showing that tapping can reduce your cortisol level, so the anxiety hormone, by 43%.
Wow.
So that's a shame that it's not a tool that is taught, at school for the kids. Like I think that, or even, for us at the corporate, that would be a great tool. So let's say you're thinking about an event that had a very strong emotional charge for you. Let's say this afternoon you had a meeting with your boss, it didn't go well, you said something, he said something, whatever, and you're very like upset. You can probably not tap in front of your boss when you're back at home, at your office, whatever. You can tap. You're thinking about the event and you're tapping, and then the emotional charge is gonna subside. So you can look at the event after without any emotion. And instead of having this anger, this anxiety locked into your body, these are gone. And you can do that for events that have been happening 40 years ago when you were a child. You can use tapping. I use tapping a lot on limiting belief with money. For example, like I was raised in a family that didn't really like money much. We were Catholic, so money is usually not very loved. So you have like all this fake belief of, well, if you have money, you're a bad person. So I tap a lot to remove this conditioning, this limiting belief. So it helps a lot for daily irritants, for conditioning, limiting belief, events that happened to you and that were very charged. So it's a fabulous tool, and you can still work with a coach as well, of course.
Of course, of course. Well, like you said earlier, right? There's many tools that one can employ, and this is, by the sounds of it, an amazing tool. I'll definitely look into it myself
Yeah.
and see how I can apply. Because you mentioned about something critical that, at least for me, I know everyone takes different things from it, but that slowness of the brain always taking charge and giving you thoughts, giving you ideas, controlling everything, right? Because one of the things I've been working on in 2023 towards the later part of it, and now in this new year, is to actually allow my intuition, allow my inspiration to come through more and trust what comes up.
Yeah.
But that means that the brain has to slow down sometimes. The brain has to be like, okay, I understand that I have to work in unison with this other part of me, which is the heart, let's say, or the gut.
Yeah.
And how do we do it? Because as with a math background, science background, computer science, engineering, I was always up in my head.
Hmm.
And while that serves, it's great. It serves a lot of roles. It also prevents you from utilizing your full tool set, so to speak, right? And we
Exactly.
talked about it, like becoming your true authentic self.
Exactly.
And when you tap into that, and funny that people say tap into it. Now, maybe there's some correlation
Yeah,
there, right?
I
Like
know,
tap
I
into it.
know.
I love that. Okay, Peggy, that's awesome. I'll look
Yeah,
more into it.
yeah,
Now, as we get closer to the end of the hour here, let's talk a bit about your upcoming book, right? I have my note here. It says it's called The Microdose Diet, the 90-day plan for more success, passion, and happiness. And that's coming in May of 2024, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. I wrote that book simply because I've been on that journey myself for like 15 years. And it's the book I wished I had 15 years ago. And it's I don't like to call it a turnkey, but it's really a step by step, easy to follow plan. So mixing microdosing psilocybin because I see great advantage in that, but also some exercise and tools like tapping, but also guided meditation, journaling, and visualization. So it's really about my perspective in life is not about adding more, it's about removing. So if you are training for a marathon, what is best to remove a 20-pound weight at your ankles or to practice more running? I think it's better to remove the weight. And that's really the premise of the book. It's tapping, it's journaling, to remove this limiting belief that prevent you. to have more success, passion, and happiness. And that's really the way I look at it. And it's 15 minutes a day, so nothing crazy. So, and that's really my philosophy, which is less versus than more. You, to get more, you actually need less.
I couldn't agree more, and that was a big aha moment for me somewhere last year. And it kind of goes with this in the same vein as sometimes you have to slow down to really be able to get faster and
Accelerate,
to progress.
exactly. It's
Yeah, American.
counterintuitive, but it's exactly that. And we live in a world where it's faster, 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 more, more, more. But the same way a rest is going to help you be more productive, well, you need to slow down or you need to remove things to get more and accelerate.
I love that. I love that. And why do you call it the 90-day plan? Why 90
It's
days?
90 because it's 90 days. So it's a program
Oh,
over 12 week. So every week has a different theme. We're building on week over week. And the goal is really from D0 to D90, there is a transformation happening.
beautiful, beautiful. So it's based on the outcome after the 90 days. I love that.
Exactly.
Awesome, Peggy. This has been such a pleasure. Of course, before I let you go, is there anything else that comes up for you that you would like to share with us that maybe we haven't touched upon?
Well, actually, I just want to bring us back to the beginning of the conversation. That's very important for me, for the audience to think of. And it's really question everything. You heard us for maybe less than an hour, close to an hour. Question everything. It's not about are you in agreement or not. It's more, well, I don't know. Maybe I should Google something. Maybe so. It's really about that. Don't passively absorb anything, whether it's us. Hopefully, us we're conveying good messaging. But whether it's us, but when you watch your Netflix, when you look at your social media, when you're listening to your boss, is it really true? Is it really true? So that's my last message.
Beautiful. I love that. Well, Peggy, it's been such a pleasure. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
It was a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of personal transformation. Your presence and engagement are at the heart of what we do, and I sincerely appreciate you, your time, and thirst for knowledge, inspiration, and empowerment. Please consider showing your support by hitting like, subscribe, leaving a comment, or writing a review. Your engagement not only fuels our mission, but also helps others discover these insights. For more daily guidance on personal transformation across the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical realms, be sure to visit our website at unleashthyself.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Unleash Thyself Today, TikTok and YouTube at Unleash Thyself, and there we post daily content designed to inspire and empower you on your journey. If you have any specific thoughts, questions, or feedback, I truly value your input. I would love to hear from you. Together, we're building a community united in authenticity and purpose. Once again, thank you for being a part of this movement. Until next time, continue to embrace your true self and live a life on purpose with purpose. See you in the next episode.